explained why identifying Air India plane crash victims hinges on DNA. Why it takes time. In the aftermath of the tragic Ahmedabad to London Air India plane crash, which resulted in the loss of at least 265 lives, the process of identifying the deceased has become a scientifically demanding task. With bodies charred beyond recognition, authorities have collected more than 200 samples to identify victims. The DNA tests will be conducted at the Forensic Science Laboratory FSL and the National Forensic Sciences University in Gandhinagar, Gujarat. Once identified, the remains will be returned to the families. News 18 spoke to forensic experts to understand this tedious and challenging process. Nanandr Maus Humi Suryavanshi, a molecular biologist and clinical scientist at Amrita Hospital, Faridabad, told NEWS 18 that the initial 24 to 72 hours are crucial for triage and potential life-saving interventions. However, when fatalities are extensive, the focus shifts to forensic recovery, identification, and the dignified management of remains. Charred bodies present unique challenges. High temperatures from aviation fuel fires often obliterate facial features, fingerprints, and even dental records, making traditional identification methods ineffective. In such cases, DNA profiling becomes the only reliable means of identification. However, collecting viable DNA from heat-damaged tissue or bones requires advanced forensic capability and time. It's a logistically and emotionally intense exercise, said Suryavanshi, who is credited with establishing the molecular laboratory at the Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Institute and Research Center, Delhi. According to forensic experts, given the present scenario, the teams rely on DNA profiling, considered the most reliable method when visual identification or fingerprinting is impossible. The identification process begins at the crash site, where forensic teams meticulously recover human remains. Every bone fragment, tissue sample, or personal item is collected and preserved for laboratory examination. Handling over 250 bodies also involves coordination between multiple agencies: disaster response teams, forensic laboratories, local hospitals, law enforcement, and the airline. Suryavanshi explained that bodies are first numbered, photographed, and mapped at the site before being transported to a mortuary or hospital. At the hospital, a multidisciplinary team, including forensic pathologists, anthropologists, and DNA experts, conducts autopsies, collects DNA samples, and analyses any remaining identifiers, such as orthopedic implants or dental structures. Simultaneously, relatives are interviewed to gather antemortem data such as clothing, scars, medical history, or DNA samples, which is essential for cross-referencing. Prominent biologist Shekhar Monde, distinguished professor at Savitribai Phule Pune University, detailed the forensic procedure. The team of experts first collects the remains of the deceased, such as clothing, charred bodies, bones, and other biological materials, and then isolates DNA from them. This process can take slightly longer in the case of a plane crash, as the bodies are often severely burned. Once DNA is extracted, DNA fingerprinting is performed. This is a technique that uniquely identifies an individual by comparing the DNA of the deceased with reference samples provided by family members, said Monde, former Director General of the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research (CSIR) and former Secretary of the Department of Scientific Industrial Research (DSIR), Ministry of Science and Technology. It's a challenging, complex, time-consuming, and sensitive process. In cases where nuclear DNA is degraded due to high temperatures, scientists often turn to mitochondrial DNA, which is more heat-resistant and maternally inherited. Matching begins once DNA profiles are generated. According to Dr. Akanksha Chaturvedi, scientist at the National Center for Cell Science, Pune, human DNA is unique to each individual, with approximately 50 inherited from each parent. After fingerprinting, detailed analysis is conducted to establish matches, based on which the relatives of the deceased can be identified and informed. Reference samples are collected from family members, typically blood or cheek swabs, or retrieved from the victims' personal belongings, such as a toothbrush or comb. These samples are compared using forensic software and statistical tools to ensure high-confidence matches. The process, however, is neither quick nor easy. NANAN officials at the site of the postmortem told reporters that it will take nearly 72 hours to complete the DNA matching process. This is a long and meticulous process, and the typical 72-hour timeline is quite tight, Chaturvedi explained. The challenge increases significantly in cases involving charred or degraded remains, where the DNA may be fragmented. However, unless the bodies are completely destroyed, it is usually possible to retrieve enough genetic material to make a positive identification. Experts believe that with over 200 deceased, the scale of the operation adds another layer of complexity. In reality, Suryavanshi said, the process can take weeks to several months, depending on the condition of the remains, the availability of forensic infrastructure, and the number of missing persons reported. Swipe left for next video. As authorities move to bring closure to grieving families, the quiet work of forensic scientists continues behind the scenes. Slow, deliberate, and deeply human, Suryavanshi said, adding, at every stage, compassion and precision go hand in hand because these aren't just bodies, they are people someone loved. According to Dr. Deepa Mahesh, consultant, pathologist at Bengaluru-based Sparsh Hospital, the 72-hour window is a very initial phase of processing, not full identification. The scale and quality of remains is crucial, and availability of the reference samples altogether contribute in making this a meticulous, resource-heavy process which can take the time of several weeks in reality. A longer period would be needed for proper DNA identifications, she said. Latest blogs.